everyone. This is David with No Chaser, and I hope you all had your happy holidays and Christmas, Ramadan, Hanukkah, Kwanzaa, Boxing Day. I don't know. Anyways, but I know holidays can be particularly stressful for alcoholics and addicts, people in recovery, all that stuff. So I try to keep it with a simple topic for this video, and the topic will be the nature of reality and suffering. Now, honestly, I want to talk about this because this concept. I'm not just doing this for some like philosophical whims. Like honestly, this is one of those things that is a concept that I think if you can get on board with somewhat, it could be very helpful in kind of stress reduction or reducing kind of slumps you might be in, depression, help with cravings, like stuff like that. This is something I kind of learned from mindfulness arduously, and it's been helpful for me. And usually, I'll be honest, usually things like concepts or intellectualizing stuff is never really that helpful, because most of things that deal with suffering or bad feelings, it comes from here. It doesn't come from here. Honestly, I have never been able to think myself into a better mood. I sometimes I can grasp onto ideas and try things like positive self-talk or things like that, but I've never been able to reconceptualize myself to be happier. But I can buy in with ideas that can make it easier just to live or to get through. And honestly, when I'm talking about the nature of reality, I'm talking about how fleeting it is, because I want you to imagine this for a scenario when it's a really rough day, a rough morning, a rough afternoon. I woke up this morning and it was just difficult. It was one of those days where I just woke up and I'm like, ugh, I can't wait to go back to bed. I've been up for 30 seconds now. That's not a good sign. But honestly, when I think about this, it kind of came from this experience I had. And so a therapist of mine had given me homework. Nothing's funner than homework from a therapist. And it was basically like your sort of emotional checkpoint, calendar schedule thing. And so it's used in cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, CBD, BD, ABC, whatever. And it was just kind of a check-in, just see where you're at. It had a list of kind of emotions that you would kind of write in a 1 through 10, how you're feeling. A lot of times it would just be I don't know, 0. And, it started out with doing it twice a day, once when I woke up and once when I went to bed. And honestly, when I started doing it, I was like, well, this is pointless. When I wake up, I'm not, either, honestly, I feel the crushing weight of sadness and reality, or I'm just tired, or I'm ready to get up. I don't feel, it's either nothing or really low, which might not be good. Anyways, but it's really not much. There's not much to fill out. So I was like, all right, that's dumb. I'll do this at another time. I'm going to kind of switch stuff around where I'll do it midday, and then I'll do the check-in at night. And as when I really tried practicing honesty and thoroughness with this, I was like, I'm trying to remember how my morning and mid-afternoon was. I feel okay right now, but didn't I have some depressive thoughts and bad times earlier this morning? Or I do the same thing at night where I'm just I feel crummy right now. But I remember I was laughing a lot earlier, right around dinner when I was talking with so-and-so. I don't think it would be fair for me to rank this a 3 out of 10 for this block of time, because I'm being honest, I remember good moments. And at that point I was like, okay, well, this isn't very accurate. I need to if I want some sort of accuracy of where I'm at, I'm gonna have to break this down to even more intervals. And instead of 2 check-ins a day, I should do 4. Then when I did 4, it seemed a little bit more accurate. I was kind of more in touch with how my day was going. Okay, yeah. And when I woke up at 7, things were pretty good. At 10 a.m., I was angry about this thing. But I remember at lunch, it was all right. As I wanted, in the search for more accuracy, I actually started doing more, because I became kind of fascinated by it, about how, I kind of put this narrative a lot of times on my day, oh, this was a crummy day. Or at the beginning of the day, I just all right, got to get through this one. And, I've never realized how much that had actually passed. Now, this is not to say that your life is just full of complete mood swings where you're super happy at 11:30 a.m. and you're super sad at 1 p.m. and It's not quite like that, but I realized kind of going through this little exercise of like doing these checkpoints where there was a lot of times I kind of just made this decision again, this sort of narrative decision that I was like, oh, this afternoon sucked or this night was difficult. And if I like had to press myself, it's like, all right, really try to recall some of the day. I was like, okay, well, I was doing that. And even times at like work where I'm just like, man, work sucks. It's another slog. Like during a lot of my time at work, I was kind of engaged. I wasn't really depressed. It wasn't like, again, super like stressful. I was kind of just going through it, which I know a lot of you don't want your life just to be going through stuff. But I mean, it wasn't as bad as I'd made it up in my head. Like I kind of did this retroactive, assignment of like how this day was. And there was this interesting quote who I can't attribute to it because I don't remember, but it was just talking about how like 90% of a person suffering, and I'm not saying this is like exactly true, but just roll with me on this. Like 90% of a person suffering is in the imagination. Like there is real suffering that like acutely happens, whether it's physical pain, whether it's like a pang of like guilt or embarrassment or sadness or something that just like washes over you. That stuff happens. That's actually a really small, like a fraction almost of like what suffering you go through because you just keep spinning it up through here. And it's like, sometimes I know some people do that with anger, like people with anger management problems. Like a lot of people they're of the notion that like there's an addiction to anger. Like they kind of respin it because it like at least starts pumping some aliveness into you, or you feel more engaged with your life at that moment, or whatever. The anger feels good. And I could say the same thing where I wouldn't say anybody's like addicted to depression, but you kind of have this mechanism where it just kind of spins it, and you kind of keep telling yourself this story. A really interesting thing I had heard about, like when you're trying to evaluate and consider like how you deal with depression, is like try to like go a full day, like make it your job. I know this doesn't sound great, but make it your job to be like that really sad, depressed moment. Be that all day. And the thing is that you'll actually, if you're really trying to like consciously do it, you'll realize that it's actually very difficult because I mean, you might not be in a good mood, but then things will happen. And again, not things that like, oh, I saw a funny joke or something, but honestly, just being engaged with something. Like one thing that has helped me that stopped like the horsepower of my mind is like really working on just active listening, really listening to people. Like that's one thing I found helpful about being around people, because when I commit to listening, there's not enough bandwidth for all this other crap to go on. I mean, this, carries over into a lot of things about like how your mind engages, and not like isolating your mind and sort of like the whole of just thought where it's just, I always likened your mind by itself as like back before there were cell phones, when you're just like in a truck stop bathroom or a high school bathroom, people would just carve the nastiest stuff like swastikas or just terrible things about their ex-girlfriend or boyfriend, like into the walls. Well, I shouldn't say, I mean, that was mainly a guy thing, but like you're just bored and you start writing this horrible crap. And it's almost kind of like what your mind does when it's just completely by itself. I mean, that's a whole nother subject. But what I'm talking about is the sense of what your mind is doing when you put this narrative that your day, your whole day, or even your whole afternoon has been this way. And again, this is for good or for bad, but really the nature of reality is so fleeting. Like the way that you feel something, even in this moment right now, as I'm talking to this camera thing, I am like, I'm fully engaged. I'm doing this thing. I'm not feeling sad. I'm not feeling, I'm in this moment. And I could, at the end of this day, if it's something difficult or bad happened, I could just tell myself, this day was horrible. This day, I don't know if more days are like this. I don't know if I can keep going on. You can start doing that where you start prescribing badder things, worse things in your future because of how you saw your day or your life at that moment. And, like people think, it's been, you hear this a lot, especially with the new year coming up, like, oh, I can't wait for like 2022 to be over. And, like, I'm just so tired of this whole year. And I'm like, I swear I see that like every single year. And, there's good parts of it. And this is not one of those things that happens a lot where someone's like, oh, I saw you laughing once. You've been lying about depression the whole time, or you've been lying about like things being tough because I saw you enjoying yourself once. I'm not saying it's like that. I'm saying this is something just within yourself to just really grasp the idea that things do pass, and like trying to pay attention to how they pass. It's been really helpful because I think about it in myself where I'm just, again, this morning where I like just really difficult. And it's like, oh, I hate this. And I was already like, the wheels were churning and everything. I was just like, but at like 10 o'clock, you're going to be feeling different. Maybe it's not going to be great, but you're definitely going to be feeling different. Hell, maybe in 30 minutes, you'll probably be feeling different. Like it will pass. And that's a common theme, especially in like recovery when it comes to like cravings or wanting to give in or being impulsive or something, any of those lines. But I mean, really in a sense of just if you think about the role that your own narration plays in your life and how you feel and how it changes your mood, it's really important to be like, dude, this stuff just passes away. The last thing I'll say is that I remember there's been several people I know that they were alcoholic for so long in their life. Like I knew one person personally that was like an alcoholic actively from like the age of 18 to like 80. They basically got sober when they're 80 because they're so sick and physically incapable of getting it anymore. I don't know how, like it was just one of those crazy, tough, never die old man things. Smoked Marlboro Reds his whole life and just lived to like 92, drinking like a fish. Anyways, but I thought, that story doesn't seem very inspiring because it's like, yeah, he got sober. He never gave up. And I was like, yeah, but I mean, if you think about it, most of his life was pretty awful. Like that doesn't inspire much hope in me because it's like, yeah, he got sober when he was 80 and he wasn't able to do much with his life after that. So yay, he was sober for, I don't know, like 1/10 of his life or 1/20th or whatever. Like, but I thought about it. It's like that. None of that matters. All the 80 years or whatever before that doesn't matter because he was just living how he was right then in that moment now. And that could sound very cliche, but when I thought about it that way, it was just like, well, none of that crap mattered because he got sober. It made his life better. And then in those years or in that moment, the way he was then was better for him. Maybe not the greatest, but it was better. It's kind of like the zero-sum game of how your life is or how your day is or how your morning is. Any way you want to play it, where it's like good or bad. And if you think to yourself, it's like, all right, well, everything is built up and my life is up to this point. How is this moment? Is it good? Is it all right? Well, that's fine then, because this is all I ever get to live. I don't get to live that other stuff. I don't have to live it again, and I don't get to live in the future yet. So I got this right now. And if this is good, if this moment is good, then my life is good. Truly. I've been really trying to grasp that, and I found it helpful. Thank you for taking this excursion into like this heady sort of topic. Or maybe it's not too heady. I think I trust all y'all. You can wrap your minds around it, hopefully. I mean, it's not too wise, and now I'm sounding dumber the more I'm talking. Anyways, if you're going through it, just remember reality is fleeting. The present moment is all you have, and it's slippery. It's like a piece of soap in a bathtub. If it's bad, it will move on and go away and fall out of your hands, and then there'll be a new thing. Man, I'm really losing it. All right, everybody, enjoy the new year and all that good stuff, and be well.